Oh, hey. Hi. Hi, guys. This is a really cool thing that we're doing here on Live Sign. If you go today, right now, to jerichobook.com, you can get one of these beautiful Chris Jericho, No is a Four-Letter Word, the new book that's coming out tomorrow. And this is a book that's basically, when I did three autobiographies, all of them New York Times bestsellers, and all of them within the course of 7 years. I wanted to write another book, but I thought maybe four autobiographies in 10 years would be a little bit pretentious. Not exactly Ernest Hemingway. Although I do have a six-toed cat, so there's a correlation there. But I wanted to do something a little different, and I had a lot of people always asking me, how do you become a wrestler? How do you get into a rock and roll band? How do you do all these things that you do? And so I thought it might be fun to kind of figure that out. How did I make this happen? So I came up with 20 principles of how I was able to accomplish these goals that I had, and based them around lessons that I got from various people, both real and fictional, from Gene Simmons to David Bowie to Vince McMahon to Steve Austin, to people that you don't know, like a dear past friend of mine called Mike Lazansky, to Yoda, Mike Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Viv Savage from Spinal Tap. All of these people giving me little tidbits. Viv Savage's principle is have a good time all the time. So there's a whole stories based around that concept. And it all started with a quote that Paul Stanley gave in 1987 that I always lived my life by ever since, which was, the only people that tell you you can't do something are the ones that have failed. I'm not going to tell you that you can't do something because I did it. You can do it. And just that little snippet of knowledge, like Paul Stanley said, I can do it. So that's what I focused on. If someone told me you can't be a wrestler for whatever reason, or you can't be in a rock and roll band, I didn't care. I didn't give a shit what anybody else thought. If I wanted to do it, I was going to make it happen. And in a fine bit of cool circle is closed type thing, Paul Stanley actually wrote the foreword to this book. So it's a self-help book, but it's still filled with the ridiculous stories that you're used to in a Jericho book. So it's not like it's a textbook of, Pythagorean theorem or anything like that, if that's even a thing. If it's not, it should be. That'll be my next book, Pythagorean theorem. But it's filled with, like I said, a lot of really funny, ridiculous, stupid stories where I'm always making a fool of myself, but at least tying it around to where you learn a lesson too. So it's like a very special edition. It's like what was it used to call those, the after-school special. It's like an after-school special Chris Jericho book. So after all that, just so you know exactly what it's about, if you go to jerichobook.com now, you can get this book signed by me. And what we do is we have this book right there as an example of it. I still love seeing that Chris Jericho forward by Paul Stanley. Like, that's just my 14-year-old Kiss fan. It's like, ah! You open it up and you see this thing. That's called a book plate. This is a literary lesson from Chris Jericho. That's called a book plate. So I sign this and basically stick it onto the book, and then you get the book in the mail with my signature on it, even though it says United States Champion, which makes me laugh. So I am not the United States Champion, but I am a 3-time New York Times bestselling author, hopefully 4. If you go to jerichobook.com and buy that. And I'm going to be answering questions from people that have bought a book, maybe even call a few of you, maybe. You know what happens when Chris Jericho calls you? Yeah, whatever. So, okay, so I'm going to start signing. I'm going to also answer questions as I'm signing. There's the first one right there. Okay, check it out. That's real. That's a certificate of authenticity. And I'm not a robot or a clone or a hologram, unless this is like the Matrix and maybe I am a clone and just don't know it. But we'll worry about that for another time. So this is me signing, and if you go to jerichobook.com right now, you too can be a part of this fine ridiculosity known as Chris Jericho. And I'm going to go to the phones. I feel like I'm on the Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Telethon. Jerry Lewis just passed away, not mentioned in my book, but he is mentioned right now on this. So let's go to the boards, and I'm going to start it off with Corey from Bemis Point, New York, who says, what has led to the evolution of your voice? I can't even pull these books out. I'm like an idiot here. There we go. Feels like Roger Waters' The Wall. Break the walls down. Yeah, boy. What has led to the evolution of your voice across albums, including production techniques? Well, I think the evolution of the voice, it's something that we talk about in the book as well, is knowing what you do best, knowing what your wheelhouse is, knowing where the range of what you do, where you fit most comfortable and what your strengths are. Exemplify the strengths and take away the weaknesses. So I think it's just a lot of experience from being on the road. You learn how to sing within what you can do. I have a very strong voice, so we can do 6 shows in a week, which makes it durable and gives it a different tone. So all of that adds up, and it's just like anything else. Experience is where you can really find that confidence and find yourself. And that's the one of the principles in the book is the Jericho principle, which is believe in yourself, because if you don't, no one else will. You have to believe in yourself and believe that you can do all of these things that you really focus on and want to make happen. And that's I think it's a good lesson for all of us to learn. And this book, it's not just for wrestling fans. It's for anybody that enjoys how somebody created this journey and was able to make it from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, small town Canada, in the 80s, early 90s. There was no internet. There was no way of getting any inside information. And that's why I was able to put this book together, because a lot of little tips that I had to do to stay moving forward, and believing in myself was one of them. Favorite autobiography that you have read besides yours is Andrew from Atlanta. That's a great question. It's like Bon Scott in Let the Rock. See, that's a good question. I was really influenced when I wrote my first book by Mick Foley's books, specifically Have a Nice Day. And another one, a little bit more obscure, was Andy Summers' book, One Train Later. I'm a huge Police fan. My last tattoo is actually right there. That's the Ghost in the Machine album cover. But when I read his book, I was really surprised. It was very funny, had a lot of great stories in it, very well written, but a lot of little just pop culture references that kind of were, stuck in there. And then another thing that really influenced me as well is I was watching The Family Guy, and I really decided I wanted to write my books like an episode of The Family Guy. And what I mean by that is if you read my books, it's constantly like, I was out for revenge, and I wasn't talking about Bruce Kulick, who's the guitar player in Kiss on the Revenge album. If you get that joke, it's funny. If you don't, it doesn't resonate. You just keep going. And that's The Family Guy. I got that from that, because Family Guy will have all these things like, I've had the worst day of my life, and the door would open and Lenny and Squiggy are standing there. Hello, which was the big gag on Laverne and Shirley. This couldn't get any worse. And they open the door and Lenny and Squiggy are there. If you don't know that show, you just see a couple greasers standing there, and it's there for like 2 seconds, then on to the next thing. If you do know Laverne and Shirley and you get it, it's freaking hilarious. It's genius. So that's what I wanted to do with my book, constantly drop these references in there to where if you get it, it makes it so much more personable. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. That was another thing that really, to this day, in this book, there's a lot of them as well, which is really funny when you're talking to the copy editors who go like, well, you're going to have to say, I ain't talking about Bruce Kulick from Kiss. It's like, no. You never explain the joke, because then it becomes not a joke. So I've been arguing with these guys for years about this. And I told somebody earlier, at the end of the book, in the epilogue, I talk about how I'm all grown up now. And they kept saying to me, striking the S in the edit, it's all grown up. I'm like, no, you guys have obviously never seen Swingers, when they go to the end of the movie and he's staring at the chick and he's like, oh, you're all grown up, and you're all grown up, and you're all grown up. That's what I was getting at. There's supposed to be an S at the end of it. I just did the audiobook and I got to the part and read it. The fucking dudes put the S off. Grown up. It's groans up. So anyways, that's the type of stuff you have to deal with when you write a book, because there's a lot of different edits. You do the initial edit, then you do another and another and another and another. I think this one went through 6 edits, 5 edits maybe, and then the copy editor comes and tries to ruin all your jokes. And then there's like a legal editor who comes and tells you all the stuff that you can't say about people, vicious, horrible things. And then there's the proofreader who comes, and it's so funny, even after reading this time and time and time again with a proofreader and all the other people, there's still a few mistakes in it, which always drives me crazy. And my third book had tons of mistakes, to where I was furious. But this one, it only has a couple. But still, how could that even slip through the cracks when you do so many read-throughs? But it's cool. Doesn't matter. All right, so let's see. Who else do we got here? Hi, Chris. This is Sean from Singapore. That's cool. I saw you in June. My question is, how do you find the time and passion to maintain the roles you play? Wrestling, Fozzie, best-selling author, family man, podcast, and yet be at the top of the game in whatever you do. It's truly amazing. Well, this book will basically tell you how to do that. And there's the Vince McMahon principle is work hard and then work harder. You have to put in the time to make these things work. You also have to believe in yourself and believe what you want to do and make it happen. The Richard Hayden principle, that's a good one. That's from Tommy Boy. Richard Hayden was David Spade's character. And that one was we don't take no for an answer. And that's why no really is a four-letter word. I find that people accept now the word no and use it far too easily to where it becomes a dirty word. It crushes dreams, let's say. I really want to do this. No. Well, why can't I? Okay. Don't accept that. When someone says no to you, if you feel that that's the wrong answer, then this book will help you use all the tricks that I've learned to turn that no into a yes. And it's not magic. It's just it's a really intense belief in yourself. Which storyline never got greenlit that Chris would have loved to have worked? That's from Alan in Nantwich, Cheshire. There's a great story in here. It's in the Negro Casas principle, aka the bad cow incident, and the principle of that is you got to know how to read the room. You got to know your audience, and that's not just for wrestling or music. That's like business, having meetings, whatever it is. Know who it is you're talking to, and what it is you need to do to get on their favorable side. And the bad cow, I'm not going to tell you, and this isn't like this annoying author read my book thing, but it's such a long, involved, brilliant story involving the insanity and genius of Vince McMahon. To where hashtag bad cow, get ready, it's going to be trending worldwide tomorrow, because I asked people at the end of the chapter, please let me get something out of this horrific ending, and let's get hashtag bad cow trending worldwide. So I think you're going to see that. The other one that you're going to see in here, hashtag, is hashtag battle through the zombies. And that one has another meaning to it as well. So if you want to hear which storyline didn't get greenlit, the bad cow chapter is definitely for you. It involves me and Bray Wyatt and Shawn Michaels and the family. And I'll leave it at that. Let's see. What drives you to keep doing all that you do? Well, I think a big reason for that is I'm very fortunate that I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. I don't have to do anything for money. I don't have to do anything that I feel is not right for me. And I've earned that right by putting in the work. So if I believe in it and I want to do it, I'm going to give it 1,000%. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have such a great fan base, so many great friends of Jericho, because if you see Chris Jericho's name on it, that it's going to be quality, that I'm giving my 10,000% on a project or whatever, a book, whatever it may be, that I've put in the time. No one will ever rubber stamp Chris Jericho's name on something. Every book that I've ever written, I've wrote every word in it. Never had a ghost writer. I had a collaborator that I worked with that is kind of like helped me produce the album. Should I cut this? Where should this go? But everything from the dust jacket, which is this stuff here, to the captions for the pictures, all of those written by me. So, and every word in it as well. So when you see that, when you read this book, it sounds like you're talking to me, because you are, because I wrote it. So this is fun, right? You guys having fun? Okay. Let's see. Will there ever be another Ayatollah of rock and roll who reminds you of yourself in betwixt the ropes? You get bonus points for using the word betwixt and not being from England. That's Jacob from Newberry, South Carolina. A good word for a South Carolinian. South Carolinian? I don't even know how you say it. It's funny, I don't know, and I've thought about this before, and it's the same thing I feel about rock and roll. I don't know if there'll ever be someone like me again. Well, I didn't know if there ever would be until over the last few years when there's been a real resurgence of international wrestling, and a lot of huge stars that are independent that aren't in the WWE. So yes, there will be another Jericho, because what I did, not another Jericho, another guy in the same vein as I am as far as how I got my career going, because I spent a lot of time. It took me 9 years to get to the WWE, but I made a name for myself everywhere else in the world. So you see guys like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and even Cody Rhodes right now leaving the WWE to come back to go kind of around the world. Drew McIntyre just did it. When you get that worldwide experience, it's not only good for you as a performer, but it's good for you as a person too. It gives you life experience. And all those guys have that. And when the WWE, when you don't need the WWE, that makes them want you even more. So if you kind of want to write your own ticket, the best way to do that is to go make it somewhere else, or be making money for somebody else in a different place. So I think there'll be other guys who have the same experience as far as a well-rounded worldwide type of a level of performer. But as far as character, I mean, I'm me. There's never going to be another Chris Jericho in anything that I do, and there'll never be another Rock, and there'll never be another, Steve Austin. That doesn't mean there won't be huge stars in wrestling that can talk and can do everything, but everyone has to have their own spin on things, or else it doesn't work. Got some good questions here. Alexander in Wanneroo, Western Australia. When will Fozzie tour Australia again? We're working on it now. We love Australia. We haven't been in a few years, but it's always a great time, always a blast, and one of our best fan bases is in Australia. So there's a lot of great stories about Fozzie in this book too. There's and you can get one signed if you go to jerichobook.com. That's jerichobook.com, and you will get it signed right there. It's called a plate, and you sign the plate, stick it on the book. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You got a signed Chris Jericho book there to use. So, yeah, a lot of great stories about Fozzie in here as well. Good stuff about when we did the Kiss Cruise, and one of my favorite stories, and that's the Mike Damone principle, which is wherever you are, that's the place to be. And we did the Kiss Cruise, and when I got the schedule, I realized that one of our shows we were playing at the exact same time as Kiss on the Kiss Cruise. Think about that for a second. Who's going to the Fozzie show then? 112 people came. But my mindset was, okay, they came and chose to see us, or maybe they couldn't see Kiss, or maybe Kiss was sold out, but I'm going to make sure that these 112 people leave this show going, that's the best fucking band I've ever seen. And that's what we did. We had a great show and worked extra hard because we wanted people to know, hey, we're here, you're here, this is the place to be. I don't care if it's the Kiss Cruise or whatever it may be. So, you got to take what you get and make it, the old take chicken salad and a chicken shit, or the other way around, or two birds in a stone and baby in a basket, whatever the other thing is. Don't listen to any of those things. Just go to the book and read it in there. Jericho falls down during signing. News at 11. Okay. JerichoBook.com for the signature. Okay. How did you come up with the concept for the list? And the funny thing is, I started working on this book in April. I think I wrote it in the back here when I started working on it. Let me just check it out here. It was, April 28th, 2016. Finished it October 2nd, 2016. I think the list started like at the end of September, so there's not even really anything about the list in here, which is a whole nother book. And the list started, and David from Texas is actually on the line. We're going to call some people as well, but let me finish this list story. Hold on one sec, David. The list was just a throwaway thing that and I talked about Jimmy Jacobs in this book. He's an independent wrestler that joined the WWE as a member of the writing team and was my exclusive writer for that whole great run in 2016-17 with Kevin Owens. It was all Jimmy Jacobs, me, and Kevin. And Jimmy one day just said, I used to challenge him, like, this isn't good enough, dude. Give me something better. Do something better. And he said one day, hey, what do you think about the list of Jericho? And I'm like, what is that? He said, well, you put Mick Foley on the list. Like, he's on your shit list, basically. And I was like, all right, sure. And I said it. We were kind of laughing how dumb it was. And then I said, well, let me actually get like a list. Like, I'll start compiling a list. So we've got this brown clipboard. And that's where it started. If you watch the initial videos of the list, the early days of it, it's just on it's on an orange clipboard. And then I said, well, we should really do something with this. And one week Vince wasn't there. So I got them to make me a big list made out of aluminum that you could hit somebody in the head with if I wanted to use it as a foreign object. And so I just carried it to the ring with me. Like, Vince isn't here. I don't have to ask permission. And then I told him the next week, hey, I brought this thing to the ring. It's the list. I could use it as a weapon if I want. It's like my prop. And he thought it was a good idea. And the rest is history. And every single person, I said this earlier today, that gets a book signed. Well, not every single person. I'd say 75%. Hey, can you write on there you just made the list? It doesn't work that way. You can't request to be on the list. Plus, I'm not going to write that in 7,000 books. You know how long that would take for me to do that? So no list requests and no you just made the list signing in your book. And with that, let's go to David from Texas. He's with us on the line. David.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, sir?
Good, man. Just signing some books and hanging out. What's going on in Texas? Are you in the rain there?
Yeah, it's pouring down rain here in Dallas, but at least I'm not down in Houston where it's still flooding down there.
Have you seen that picture that's going around right now of the shark that's on the interstate in Houston?
Yeah, they put that on there last time it flooded down there. That's just
crazy stuff, man.
Natural thing they put in. Yes, sir.
Well, be safe, man. What's going on? You got a question that you want to ask, or you just wanted to say hi?
Yes, sir. In your wrestling career, which did you like playing better, the babyface or the heel?
Somebody asked me that earlier, and I like them both as long as people are making a reaction. That's the most important thing. The worst thing is when there's no reaction. But I will say this. I've been a world champion 6 times, never one of those as a babyface. All 6 of them were as a heel. So you tell me which I like doing better. Because it's easier to get people to hate you than it is to get them to like you. But once they hate you, it's hard to have them stay hating you. And I'll give you an example. The best villains of all time in movies, Darth Vader, Freddy Krueger, Terminator, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, they all started out as these horrible, terribly, horrific villains that ended up turning into a good guy in the next movie because everybody loved them because they're so entertaining. And that's the same thing in wrestling. When you get to be a great heel, it's because you're entertaining in a way, and that always ends up turning you babyface. So, but it's fun when you get to that peak and people actually really hate you. I enjoy that.
Good deal.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for calling. Did you get a book?
Yeah, I ordered a book, and I'm waiting for it to get here. It's actually for my son. He is one of the biggest WWE wrestling fans in the world, and he can tell you anything from past, present, and what's fixing to happen in the future.
How old is he?
He's 17.
Cool. I was going to say, if he's like 10, if he reads any bad words in the book, just cover his ears. Thanks, David. Appreciate it, man.
You have a good day, sir.
Stay safe down there.
Thank you. Will do.
All right. All right. That was David from Texas. I'm going to move some of these books in here. It's getting far away. This is riveting stuff, isn't it? Watching Jericho move books. But it's fun. If you go to jerichobook.com, maybe we'll talk to you on the phone. Go to jerichobook.com, buy a book, and we'll get your phone number. And maybe you'll be a lucky person like David from Texas who got the call of Jericho. Ring the phone, man. That wasn't bad. Okay, let's see. Which wrestler has terrified you, but when you wrestle them will bring the best out of you for the match? Terrified? I don't think there's a person on the planet that I'm terrified from. I will say this, in the early 2000s, Triple H and I did not like each other at all, but always had really, really great matches. And I think one of the reasons for that, and that was Edwin from Forest Hills, New York, by the way. One of the reasons for that is because I think we pushed each other to get the best out of ourselves. Like this guy's such an asshole, but I'm going to show him. Let's show him who's better. So it created a lot of creative tension that always resulted in a great match. Now it's the opposite. He and I are really good friends. So thank you, Edwin. Let's get rid of you there. See, I love ones like this. Samantha from Fayetteville, North Carolina. If you woke up and were told you could only do one thing from here out, wrestle or make music, what would it be and why? The beauty of that is I don't have to do that. I can do both, and I do both. And once again, that goes back to having this ambition when I was a kid to want to be a wrestler and want to be in a rock and roll band, and going full force to make it happen. So, and as a result, I've got this really cool kind of deal with the WWE that I can come and go when I want. And sooner or later, one of these days, they're going to tell me no. But, and then I can go tour with Fozzie as well. And with Judas being, number one hit, things are going really good on that end too. So I'm not in the WWE now, obviously. When will I be coming back? I don't know. I got a lot of stuff going on. And if I never wrestled again, it wouldn't bother me. I've pretty much done it all. But if something was presented to me that really intrigued me and really creatively stimulated me, I'd come back and do it for sure. So, and I'm sure that will happen at some point. I'm not saying that I'm not going to come back. I'm just saying if it meant, if someone said you can never wrestle again, I wouldn't be, completely heartbroken or anything along those lines. Eric in Collinston, Louisiana. How did the whole Ralphus thing come about? Good Canadian there. Will we ever see you do a similar gimmick with a Ralphus type again? No, I mean, once it's over, right? And it's a great part of your past, but you can't recreate something like that. And that all started, it was in WCW. I always see this guy just hanging around with his crazy teeth. With he had no front teeth, and these teeth had grown out like spikes. I remember I used the term a punji stick, which is something they used in the Vietnam War where soldiers would step on these sticks, bamboo sticks covered in poison. That's what reminded me of these two punji sticks out of the side of his mouth. But I would always see him hanging around. Seemed like a super friendly guy, whatever. And then one day I was supposed to do kind of like a Goldberg type thing, a parody on Goldberg. And I was like, well, if he comes to the ring surrounded by bodyguards, I should have bodyguards too, but they should be like nerdy, shitty bodyguards. And that's when I asked the guy, his name was John Riker, if he would like to accompany me to the ring. He's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And he was a driver for the WCW. He drove the lighting truck around. And I was like, sure, well, just come here, take this shirt and put it on. Cut it in half so his gut hang out, Jericho personal security on it. And people still talk about Ralphus to this day. And remember, it's Ralphus. It's not Rufus. People go, how's Rufus doing? Like, oh, how's he doing? Well, let me tell you, I haven't talked to him in 20 years, but his name is Ralphus. And the name Ralphus came from this Herschel Gordon Lewis, just horrible horror movie from the late 60s called Blood-Sucking Freaks, where one of the killers was this drunken, deranged little person that looked like Oates from Hall & Oates, and his name was Ralphus. So I just thought that we were going through a big blood-sucking freaks phase at the time, and I was like, oh, Ralphus, I'm keeping that one. So that's where that came from. We're looking here at all the different options. I love questions like this too. Andrew from Lansing, Michigan. Will you be making one last title run before you're done with WWE? That's not a question for me. That's a question for Vince McMahon, because he's the one who knows the answer to that. Will I be back in the WWE at some point? Probably. But will I be making a title run? You got to ask the big cheese, that one, man. There's a lot of great Vince stories in this book because we've gotten a real mutual respect over the years, and he's such an intriguing character, and character being the key word there. Very interesting guy, too. So he's really humble and doesn't really like talking about himself. I doubt he'll ever write a book. So if he doesn't want to write about himself, I will. And that's what I've been doing in this one. Like I said, the Bad Cow story is tremendous. And there's a lot of other stories as well, including one where Vince and I flew from Orlando to New York City so I could start press at 7 in the morning. We started drinking. We landed at 4:30. We were both drunk. I went home and passed out in bed, and he went to the gym. And then text me afterwards calling me a pussy for going to bed. And it's like my 71-year-old boss is calling me a pussy at 5 in the morning while he's lifting weights while drunk. So there you go. There's another one there. Let's see that those books just went away. This is great. I'm a huge fan. I'm very jealous. Colette from Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. No question. Okay, I'm a huge fan. My husband is very jealous because all I talk about is you. He rolls his eyes every time I mention your name, which is all the time. That sounds intriguing, Colette. So, how much would you freak out if I showed up at your door? What a great joke that would be. He pulls out his shotgun and blows my head off. Good times. Well, thank you, Colette. I appreciate that. And tell your husband not to be jealous. How many scarves do you own? Allison says from Loveland, Colorado. I don't know. I'm not sure. I do know that should I sign some of the book plates while I'm signing? I should probably. Should I do that? I can. No, I'd like to because it gives me something. I'd rather do that. Give me some of them book plates. Let me show the guys here what the book plates are all about. So the scarves thing started when I'm a big Keith Richards fan. There's a great Keith Richards story in this book as well, and he wears scarves all the time. And I thought that's a very rock and roll thing to do, which also fits another one of Gene Simmons' principle: always look like a star. Whenever you go outside or when you go to work, don't wear a muscle shirt and shorts. Like, you got to look like somebody. That includes if you work at a bank, wear a suit, or you probably have to wear a suit if you work at the bank. Let me rephrase that. If you're going to work in the WWE, don't show up in shorts and a tank top. Wear a suit to work. That'll get noticed. So I started wearing scarves. I like the look. No one else does it. It's kind of my thing. And then it's funny because once again, Vince saw me one time. He's like, "Oh, that scarf looks terrible. What an awful thing." 2 weeks later, Alberto Del Rio goes to the ring wearing a scarf that Vince told him to wear. So there you go. He also created Fandango. I know the moment he created him when I did Dance with the Stars. And he's like talking about the male dancers. And he's like, "What are they like?" I'm like, "Oh, they're in super great shape. And the girls just love them." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Oh, I think they look stupid." And as soon as he said that, I said, "I bet she's going to have a male dancer come on the show, like a ballroom dancer." And lo and behold, there he comes, Fandango. So there you go. How many scars do I own? I'm not sure. I know that I have, I don't know, maybe a dozen here and maybe a dozen more at home. Because people give them to me too, and some of them are actually really cool. So I'm a scarf guy. I like it, and I'm a headband guy as well. And if I was on WWE right now, a lot of you guys would be wearing these too. So this will be the next fashion trend. I'm totally serious about that. All right, Zach from Pittsburgh is on the line right here on 92 City CJ 92, your best rock and roll station. What's your request, Zach from Pittsburgh?
Hi, Chris. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. My question is actually based on your music with Fozzie, and I kind of found it fascinating that you turned an ABBA SOS into a Fozzie song. So I guess because you have that as a motivation and you have a lot of song motivators, if you could choose one song to tell the story of your life, what would it be and why?
Well, that's a good question, Steve Bon Scotty. That's a good question. I don't know. Like, I know that. I guess that would probably be like, what's your favorite song? Like, what song moves you the most? And all I can do is go through my favorite bands and just look. I'm looking at my Iron Maiden tattoo. Like the song "Power Slave." It's got nothing to do with me, but just that song just really moves me. When I hear that song, it really gives me, I don't know, motivation. Battery from Metallica is like that. One from Metallica. I Want You, She's So Heavy, the Beatles. Gimme Shelter, the Stones. Black Diamond by Kiss. Those type of songs are ones that when I hear them, they take me away to a different place. And I don't know if they're the story of my life, so to speak, but they make me feel alive. And I think that's good music when you really connect with a band, makes you feel alive. And it's almost like a time machine as well, because you can hear a song that you haven't heard in 15 years and go right back to that time where you heard it first, or what you were doing, or who you were doing. So I think that's why I've always been really, really fascinated and into music, is just because of that element of the time travel and the experiences that you can recall just by hearing it again.
For sure, I agree with that. I mean, I have the same experience with my music. For me, it's different moods, and it's just every single time I hear a song, you go back to that moment, and you just remember where you were, and if it has sentimental value, all the more.
What's your favorite band?
My favorite band, I think the first one my dad introduced me to was Chicago. So there's a personal attachment to Chicago. My dad was a John Denver fan. My dad's big on that kind of an era. So I kind of learned the Chicago, the Styx kind of era.
It's funny, the guys in Fozzie, we love yacht rock, that 70s rock. And it's, what do you guys listen to? We listen to after shows, Pantera? Or, no, we listen to Kool and the Gang. We listen to Player. We listen to, Edgar Winter. We listen to all that sort of stuff, like you mentioned, and some Chicago's in there. And I think you can't just listen to the same type of music all the time. You have to have a little bit of variety. And also understand the different styles of music and why there really isn't a bad style of music, because as long as people are actually playing it. Because if it comes from you and comes from your heart and comes from your soul, who am I to judge if I don't particularly like it or not?
Right on. And I can't wait to read the book. I bought my copy already. Looking forward. It's all got signed, so really looking forward to it.
All right on, man.
Thanks so much.
Well, appreciate it, Zach. Take care. Go Penguins.
Oh, you do the same.
All right, JerichoBook.com. I'm signing the book plates. You see how it is right there. We sign those, and they get inserted into the book and straight to your house. JerichoBook.com, just for you. And okay, it's good. What band would he have perform his theme at WrestleMania? Steve from Orlando. It's actually funny, at WrestleMania this past year, where I worked with Kevin Owens, there was some discussion to have Stone Sour do it on my suggestion. But it got tanked. I didn't really hear exactly what happened, but it would have been fun, I'm sure. Because Corey's a big wrestling fan as well, and we were also both on the same book label. So go to books.com and buy a copy of my book, and then go to another place, wherever you want, and buy a copy of Corey's newest book. I'm sure you'll like it as well. If you like my writing, you'll like his. There's the plug of the day. All right, so let's see. Daniel from Rutherford wants to know, why doesn't Gallows ever stop talking during shop? Because he's really freaking drunk, that's why. That's the whole concept of talking shop. What's your favorite romantic comedy film? I don't know. What's yours? What is a romantic comedy? Like Pretty Woman or something like that? I always like Shaun of the Dead, the Zom rom-com, which I thought was really good. Very, very clever. So I'm going to go with Shaun of the Dead. Although, is Can't Buy Me Love a romantic comedy? I think it is. I love that movie, man. That's one of my all-time favorites, with Gerardo starring in a supporting role there. Do you find it tough to balance your personal life along with wrestling and performing with Fozzie? Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard. But there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to deal with when you're on the road all the time. And you really have to know that, once again, you have to put the work into doing this. If you want to make it in whatever vocation it is, wrestling, music, being a pharmacist, I don't care. You got to make the sacrifices and put the time in and do it. So I will say this, when I'm at home, I don't do anything else. I don't really have any friends in Tampa. I don't want any friends in Tampa. I just like hanging out with my kids and doing all the stuff that you need to do with the kids, So that's kind of my balance. That's my trade-off. Now we're going to play a little game here as I take some water. We're not in any way endorsed by Green Mountain, so we're going to do that. We don't want to give free plugs to Green Mountain Coffee, although I'm sure it'd be great because this is just water. We don't want to be giving any plugs to water either, so screw you, water. We're going to play a game called 22 Questions. You're going to hear my lovely assistant over here read the questions, and then I am going to answer them, which I assume is how the game goes. Consider it's called 22 Questions. I'm assuming there's also going to be 22 of them as well. So let's do it, man. Here we go.
How do you take your coffee?
Black.
What is your favorite pastime?
Is this like a speed round thing? Oh, I didn't know. My favorite pastime? Listen to music.
Who would you like to trade places with if you could?
For a day, I'd love to know what it'd be like to be a member of the Stones. Like the most famous, or McCartney. Like just so crazy famous, but still playing amazing concerts, amazing shows. But knowing that every room you walk into, every musician and person on down is going to be like, oh my God, there's the Stones. So that would be kind of cool.
Last person you called or texted?
Zach from Pittsburgh.
One fictional character you'd love to date?
Betty Cooper from Archie Comics, man. I was in love with her. I loved her so much. She was so hot.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Close friends. Like some of my close friends are so, like comedians are great, but my friend Speewee is just off his rocker. He's hilarious. I love being around him. and my other friend Rybo. We were just back in Winnipeg this past weekend, and it was just total hilarious, nonstop laughter.
Who is the most unexpected person in your phone?
Well, for the McGregor fight, the two guys I was texting with at the same time was Paul Stanley and Undertaker, which I thought was pretty funny. Not in a group text, but like Paul Stanley, bling, Taker, bling, Paul Stanley, bling, Taker, bling. But who was the weirdest one on my phone? I had one that I thought was really strange. Kenny G, I think, would be one that people wouldn't quite get. And Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky gave me his number, and I think he kind of regrets it. I don't ever barrage him with text, but once in a while I'll send him something, and I'll just get like a ha or a THX. Vince is big with that too. Vince always responds with CK, which I actually had to Google to find out that it means check. Like, hey Vince, I'm going to the show, and hopefully I'll see you there. Check, CK. So once again, my 70-year-old boss is teaching me texting street slang. So how out of touch am I?
One thing you need to have in your fridge at all times.
What do I eat in my fridge? I really like turkey burger patties. If I find those in my fridge, it makes me happy. So they're not always in there, but when they are, it's extra special fun times.
Favorite director or filmmaker?
Eli Roth. I love Eli. He's also, he makes me laugh a lot. He's a pretty funny guy. So I'll stick with him.
Last book you read?
What is the last book I read? I'm just reading one right now. I just read a book. What did I read? Of course, No is a 4-letter word. How I Failed Spelling But Succeeded in Life by Chris Jericho, which you can buy right now at Jericho Book, not Jericho Books, at jerichobook.com. You can buy the last book that I read, literally.
What color is your toothbrush?
Currently, it's a pink one.
What is your secret snack?
Junk food, almonds is my jam. I like almonds. From a junk food standpoint, I love Cheetos. I can eat a whole bag of those things. You feel like total crap, the next day, but they taste so good. They really do.
What is the last gift you gave or received?
The last gift I gave, I had a signing yesterday, and I got a really cool die-cast Chris Jericho guy, like about this big. It must be a new thing now because it said on the back that it came out in 2017. And then a pretty cool T-shirt from a paranormal podcast. So those are the two last gifts that I got.
And
gifts.
And what item would you die to get your hands on if it went up for auction?
I was gonna buy Paul Stanley's guitar from the 1984 Animalized tour. It's like a leopard pattern guitar. But when I saw it for sale, I asked Paul if it was real, and he said no, it was just a replica. Because I think Paul was the one who was selling it. But I would have paid him, $15,000 for that guitar. That would be cool, something like that. Like a guitar owned by, like a Hofner bass owned by Paul McCartney or something like that would be really cool to have. What was the question? If it's signed or what was it?
Up for auction.
Up for auction. Yeah, just to have it. Yeah, something like that would be cool. I'm not really like a collector guy though. People say, "Would you collect anything?" And it's like, not really, man. I just collect rocks from the street.
Favorite animal?
Dog, probably. I like dogs. I used to like ferrets.
Right.
Yeah, I'll stick with dogs.
Last movie you saw in the theater?
That's funny. I was trying to think of that the other day. It might be Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Might be the last one I saw in the theater. The thing is, like, when you travel as much as I do, I'll just watch the movie on the plane. Like, I just watched Kong Skull Island. It was awesome. And I wanted to see it in the theater, but I don't know. You see, like, I don't know. Sometimes I just don't feel like going. But there's a couple that I want to see, if that helps, which I'll probably just wait until it comes out on the plane.
And what cause is dear to your heart?
The fight against diabetes. I think I have some close family members that recently were diagnosed with diabetes, so that's kind of my charity of choice, if you will. And diabetes is like, it's not the worst disease you can have. It's very difficult to have it, but there's a lot of inroads that you hear about as far as mechanical and technology and that sort of thing. So I think diabetes is actually a very fightable disease over the course of time. I mean, we're living in an era when cars almost drive themselves at this point. So why can't they create, a mechanical pancreas, like a pacemaker or something along those lines? So stay tuned. I think you're going to see that.
Favorite place you've performed?
Favorite place I've performed wrestling-wise, love going to Japan. Chicago is a great city. New York's a great city. Winnipeg's a great city. Rock and roll-wise, we love playing in the UK, man. Fozzie does really good business. And I think for both wrestling and Fozzie, but more specifically Fozzie, Glasgow, Scotland is one of the most kick-ass crowds ever experienced in my life every time we play there. So that's just one. And it's like, well, how about our town? Everybody, listen, every show you do is fun, but certain ones just stand out more. Maybe it's something in the water that people are just crazy or drank more or whatever it may be. But when you see certain cities on the itinerary, you know, oh, that's going to be a great show.
What is one skill you wish you had?
Wish I could fix stuff. I'm not good at fixing stuff. Like I'm really like, I can change a light bulb. I can check the gas in a car by reading the gas gauge. But someone says, oh yeah, you know, I just remodeled my whole house, or I just redid my engine or something. I'm like, dude, I can't even do that. I'm really bad. So I guess I'm more creative with my mind than with my hands.
How about any hidden talents?
I can tie a cherry stem into a double knot just using my tongue. And at one point, at one time, there was a triple. But that's really hard because the stems usually aren't long enough. So that's one of my hidden talents. Maybe my only hidden talent. And I still can't build anything.
Who is your biggest inspiration?
I think my dad is a big inspiration for me. I think that, once again, talking about, let's say, the Stones and those type of people, that the template of what it is to be old is gone out the window. You know, you look at people in the 80s when they're my age, like, you know, 46-year-old people in the 80s, they were done. They were wearing sweatsuits and giant glasses, and that was it. They were wearing their robes at 9 p.m. ready to go to bed. But then somebody like the Stones shows that you can be young forever as long as you try, and you can still rock and still, you know, do whatever it is that you want to do. So that influence is there for me as well, and I find that very inspiring.
And last question along those same lines, Chris Jericho, in 10 years, what are you doing?
Probably more of this. I'll probably be signing these books still. But you know what? I really enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy being creatively stimulated. I enjoy having challenges. I enjoy expanding my horizons and building the Jericho brand. So I can't see a time when I'm ever going to go quit and get a job at a bank or whatever. That's my second bank reference today. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just not in my DNA. I've been on the road since I was 19. I've been entertaining people since I was 19 in various ways. And here I am, 20 some odd years later, 27 years later, doing it at the highest level that I've ever done it, with so much more to come in the future. So I will still be out there. And like I said, whether it's playing stadiums and arenas or playing an acoustic guitar in the back of the Starbucks busking, I'll be there doing it. So look for me soon at a Starbucks counter near you. That was good, 22 questions. Hey, when you're filming this, is it recording? Is it just going live? Are you recording it sound-wise?
Live, but it'll still be there.
But because I want to take the audio from this and use it as a podcast. I'll always be closing, guys. I've been nonstop talking, and I'm sure some of this made sense at some point. So, anyways, that's another thing too. I carry my podcast gear in a pillowcase because you never know. It's very easy to put my pillowcase in my suitcase, and you never know who you're going to see in town. So I'll have that pillowcase with my gear in it at all times, and oh my gosh, here we are in New York City, and it just so happens Kenny G's in town. So I text him out of my phone with my weird number, call back, he answers, and then we go do a podcast. So always got to be thinking. Brian from Park Hills, Missouri, what the heck do I have to do to be on the list of Jericho? You can't request to be on the list, man. That's up to me and me alone. So once again, don't ask to be on the list, and don't ask me to write it in your books, because it ain't happening. Is there anything you're not good at? Bob from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I can't build shit. So that's that one. I hear you on your excellent podcast, Talk is Jericho, from Byron and Eugene, Oregon. Thank you. Talk about your favorite bands, wrestlers, movie makers, but do you have a favorite artist, painter, cartoonist, sculptor? To me, art, music, and wrestling are the best things left. But to me, they're all forms of art. Anytime you build something from nothing, create something from nothing, that is art. And I really think, even a wrestling match, when you take nothing and put together some ideas and have people just going bananas for this thing you created, that's art, man. That's an art form. Dancing is an art. What an art dancing was. When I did Dance with the Stars, I really learned the art of the dance. But I'd love to have a painter on, or like a cartoonist, a comic book guy. Sure, absolutely. I just have to find one. I met a pro surfer last year, and I was like, dude, you want to do my podcast? I don't know anything about surfing, but it sounds like something cool. So, if there's any cool sculptors out there that have some notoriety and want to do Talk is Jericho, let me know, and we'll see what we can figure out. Who inspired you to start writing? That was from Cindy in Vanceboro, North Carolina. A lot of North Carolina today. People are into it in North Carolina. I've always been a reader, and actually that's one of the biggest things I hate about technology is that it's really cut down on my reading, because all I'm doing is screwing around on Twitter and going through this, and like the actual long form book days, or like I still read a book, but it's not half as much as it used to be. So I was always a big Stephen King fan. I love Stephen King, and my aunt gave me Carrie in 1981 to read when I was 10, and that's where I found out about women's periods, which is really bad, and not knowing what the hell Steve was writing about, but also remember that just how crazy the book was and how well written he was, and I just went on the Stephen King hunt to get all of his books, and I think I don't write like Stephen King, but in my head I'm trying to, because he's very descriptive with everything. He paints pictures so well, from the weather to hitched up the back of his pants, or whatever it may be, like just little things you hear that's like, I can actually see this guy hitching up the back of his pants because his ass crack was hanging out, and it's just I can see the visual. I don't know where that came from, but so I liked his writing, and then like I said, I think Mick Foley is a very talented writer, because once again he can really paint a picture of what he's trying to tell you from a storytelling standpoint. So I like reading books where I haven't seen a movie. Like, have you read the Game of Thrones books? No, I haven't, because I don't want to read about Jon Snow and see Jon Snow, the guy in the book. I'd rather see Jon Snow the way I want to see him, and reverse it and flip-flop it. That's one thing I always like when they make movies about books. Who's the character, and who's the lead actor, and where did you find that? And anyways, so let's see. Where did inspiration come from to start writing books? Anthony in Massachusetts. After Mick put out his book in the early 2000s, there was this big rash of wrestlers writing books. The WWE was hired a writer to do a bunch of WWE books, and everyone was doing them except for me. They never asked me once, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write my own book, which I always wanted to do anyways. Sorry, I'm yawning because I've been up. I got up at 6 o'clock, 6:30 today for press, and it's now 6:30 at night, as you guys can see. So, but it's been fun. But I always wanted to write a book because I love to write. I have a journalism degree. And the fact that WWE didn't ask me to do a book kind of insulted me. So when I left there in 2005 because I was burned out, and I just didn't feel like I was really doing anything that I wanted to do. And the first thing I did was approach someone about, do you need literary agents? And I got one. And my idea was just to do a book about Mexico, my time in Mexico, because I didn't want to have to cram this entire career, at the time 15-year career, into one book. I have too much to talk about. And I pitched that to my literary agent, and he said, well, let's expand it. Let's start at the beginning and go through your years, and maybe end it, when you get to WWE. I'm like, what if I end it right after WCW? So the first 9 years of my life is in the career. Actually, the first 29 years of my life, first 9 years of my career in that book. And then I was like, always hoping that it did good enough to write a part two. And then ending that one off right at a certain point. hoping that I do good enough to write a part 3, which I did, and then ending that one off at a certain point. And this is not part 4. This is like The Hobbit for Lord of the Rings. It's not a continuation of those books, but it's in the same world. But and I was really excited to write it. I love writing, and the first book was very hard because you don't know how to do it. You've never written a book. I've never written a book before. If I can do my Forrest, I've never written a book before. That wasn't bad, right? So that's kind of how it went, and then I kind of just hammered it out. And then my deadline, or what they were expecting was 100,000 words, and I gave them 175,000, and couldn't figure out why they wanted to edit it, because every word is gold when you're a writer. Everything in this book is obviously, you have to read it. But it started a real skill, and now this is the first book that I ever wrote by myself without Peter Thomas Fornatail, who's a great guy. He helped me do some edits. I gave him some credit inside, but I was like, once again, I'm all grown up, and I don't need to have him, producing me anymore. I can just do it on my own, and that's kind of where we've been at. Fozzie Steel Panther, says Anthony from Lincoln, Illinois. Yes, can you make it happen? Yes, we'd love to. We toured with them in Australia, Fozzie, Steel Panther, and Buck Cherry, and it was one of my favorite tours. And we did the Kiss Cruise with those guys. They're great guys, and very respectful and very fun, as you can imagine. There you go. What is Ralphus up to these days? I don't know. Asking people if they want fries with that. I'm not exactly too sure. That's what Chris from Brunswick, Georgia says. 2 minutes left. 2 minutes to midnight. Here we go. Let's see. What's your favorite Mick Foley story, says Brad in Tucson, Arizona? I like the one where Mick's book was out and he was promoting it. And he had a book signing later on that day. We were in St. Louis. So we have the match. I beat him by hitting him in the head with his own book and then cover him, because the book apparently is made of cement. And then he gets up and he's like, "Hey, Jericho, you cheated to win. That's bullshit. I challenge you to a standoff, to a rematch, to a stare down at the Walmart bookshop down the road in St. Louis, Route 5 at 5 p.m. Be there if you got any balls at all. It's not for everyone. Come down. We're going to have a fight. Oh, yeah? You want me at the Walmart bookshop at 5 p.m.? I'm going to be there, Foley. Yeah, you better be there. Everybody here." So, he sold out the books that day. I did not show up at the Walmart bookshop, though, but I just love how he subtly worked in this promo for Mick's book signing within the course of our anger. Are you ever scared that a move could injure you, says Chase from Boca Raton, Florida? Every match. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a dangerous game. It's as real as it gets, other than the actual storylines. But I always say that wrestling could be an Olympic sport, because it's as much of an athletic contest as figure skating, rhythmic gymnastics, synchronized swimming. It's two people performing a routine together that judges decide on who wins. So imagine how it would be if there was an American team of two guys, they wrestle a match, a Canadian team, Russian team, and whoever puts on the best match as judged on by, the officials wins the gold medal. So that'll be something that I work on. What am I going to do in the future? Get pro wrestling in as an Olympic sport. There you go. And on that note, I think we're pretty much done here, right? Once again, I guess, can you still go to jerichobook.com? For how long? For as long as you want. So go to jerichobook.com and you can get your signed Chris Jericho, "No" is a 4-letter word, "How I Failed Spelling but Succeeded in Life." You see what I did there? In the fine tradition of Jericho books, where the subtitle is always the punchline. "A Lion's Tale Around the World in Spandex." "Undisputed, How to Become the World Champion in 1,327 Easy Steps." Or maybe 72, I can't remember. Yeah, it was 1,372 Easy Steps. And then "The Best in the World at What I Have No Idea." And now, "No" is a 4-letter word, "How I Failed Spelling and Succeeded in Life." Go to jerichobook.com. I will sign one of the plates. You get this signed, sealed, and delivered. I ain't talking about Stevie Wonder. And best of all, forward by Paul Stanley. That's Paul Stanley of Kiss wrote the forward to this book. So there you go. What a great time. Thank you, guys. And have a great day. If you're in the rain, stay dry. And if you're dry, go out in the rain. And I'm just going to stop right now. Thank you. God bless you. Good night.